Welcome back to the Two Promises podcast. Let's dive right into another exciting adventure with BD and crew as he pursues his new passion of one day finding the best, most epic bourbon. The Two Promises team sends their special thanks to Hobie and the Huckleberries for that masterful theme music. So grab a glass, relax, and enjoy responsibly.
Baby says she's leaving if I don't stop drinking wine. So I switched to whiskey, now I'm feeling fine. Drinking that smooth, smooth whiskey. No more wine. I like straight bourbon. Baby, you try the ride.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm super excited to record this episode. It's something I've been wanting to share for a long time, and I'd kind of had it in my mind to kind of it more be of a group discussion or a group talk where I was talking with someone who was kind of starting the plan with me or following the plan with me, and just asking them about their results and what they were feeling as we went through the episodes. But as we all know, life happens, and it's really difficult to kind of schedule time for different things like recording episodes. So with my life being crazy, traveling a lot of places, and their life, having their responsibilities and things that they need to do, instead of delaying, I decided I would just record a solo episode to give you guys the wave tops of like a lifestyle change. But before we get there, I want to introduce the whiskey of the week. My mom went on a little bucket list vacation trip to Maine, and she brought me back a small barrel bourbon that was handcrafted from the Wiggly Bridge Distillery. The Wiggly Bridge Distillery in Maine. So go ahead, look them up, and try it for yourselves. It's very smooth. It's a mash recipe, aged under 4 years, in a new small American oak barrels. And it's 86 proof, 1986, the year of my birth. There we go. And now you know. Okay, so back to, for lack of a better word, I'm just going to call it the whiskey diet. Now, sometimes I get really hung up on words and their meaning, both their connotation and their denotation. So I'm going to break that down real quick. Connotation is kind of the emotional meaning behind a word, like what you feel when you hear a word, and then denotation of the word is the dictionary definition. So depending on your worldview, your life experience, you might have an emotional response to a word that's very aggressive that is just a word to somebody else. So that would be a connotation that would cause that feeling so strongly. And the denotation is what it actually means in context of everything and the dictionary and everything. So anyway, I said that to say this. I'm going to talk in principles. I'm going to talk in like large concepts. So just for the sake of everyone, because if I try to talk extremely specifically, it would just take way too long. I'd bore you all to death. Nobody wants to be bored, and that's one of my rules, is I need to have some entertainment value in each episode. So we're going to hit wave tops. Don't get too hung up on some of the words. So whiskey diet. Is it really a diet? No. Is it a medical or whatever? No. Do I know a lot of things about medicine, physiology, sports medicine, fitness? Yes. Has everyone asking me how I completely changed my energy levels, my physique in like 4 months? Yes. Everybody's asking. Everybody's curious. So that's why I'm wanting to get this recorded for all of you. But again, don't get too hung up. And if you have questions, ask them in the comments on my Facebook page. That's where or even in Instagram. Facebook or Instagram. I have more people there on Facebook. But just drop the comments. You got questions? You want me to clear anything up? I'd be happy to do an episode. So, to get started, if you've been following my socials, you might know what some people are asking me about. So I just want to start with, and just imagine, if you could eat literally anything you wanted, and you had reserves of energy levels that you never believed were even possible, and you don't even have to completely change your grocery shopping list. You don't have to spend countless hours in the gym. You don't have to watch 15-minute long YouTube ads where some guy drones on and on about what foods kill testosterone or blah, 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 whatever. You've all seen them, right? And maybe you've, gone to those people and you paid them tons of money or a little bit of money, or, maybe they did you a favor and they did like an exchange system where they helped you do meal plans or a fitness plan or a strategy, and you guys did like a barter system or something. Who knows? I've tried a lot of different things. Maybe you guys have too. So I'm just giving you some examples of some things that I've tried in the past and that didn't really work for me. And a lot of times people will say things like you have to pay attention. And I think that you're going to pay regardless, honestly. So I think it's important to get very clear with what you want to pay attention to that supports your goals, and then cut out the other distractions. Otherwise, everybody's going to try to tell you the exact same thing, and I don't know. Maybe you'll get there, maybe you won't. So here's my challenge, is I want to make this as simple as possible for a broad audience. Now again, don't take this as medical advice. I'm not a doctor. Proceed at your own risk. If anything seems scary or uncomfortable, of course, consult with a physician. But what I'm going to, again, tell you is how you can literally eat whatever you want, whenever you want, feel great, have tons of energy, and it not being some crazy, painful, completely changing lifestyle. But there is a warning. There are also consequences. Anytime you go to a new level or you improve yourself or whatever, there's going to be consequences, good and bad, right? So some of the negative consequences I ran into that I'd like to warn you of is that once I started unlocking this energy within myself and like this passion, and I started getting really clear with what I wanted and how I wanted to feel healthy and be healthy and help other people be healthy and kind of heal myself internally, externally, and the things around me. And then I got all this energy. Well, everyone thought that I was either crazy, strung out on meth or some crazy drugs, or completely drunk or drugged out of my mind. And they just thought I was nuts. I don't know why. But in fact, all that was happening was I was actually getting relatively decent sleep for my baseline. And I was rested enough. And I was putting good, healthy food into my body instead of just whatever was available in whatever country I was in. And, my results might have come because I'd already had some muscle memory for, fitness based on everything that I've, done in the past. But the point is, it's possible for everyone, and it's simple. Well, most everyone. You get what I'm saying. But so let's make it simple, right? Let's make it simple. I would like to also create other episodes. Again, this is the wave tops. I want to create other episodes where I dive a little bit deeper into the topics. For those of you that are kind of more research oriented, or the details of the physiology and stuff like that. All right. So, but before we get started, one thing that is really important to me that is crucial to this whole thing working, and it's not even something that you have to physically do. This is a mental exercise. So the mental exercise, because, I'm a mindset coach or whatever. I guess I'm not really a mindset coach, but I know a lot about mindset, and I know a lot about how to maximize people's performance and how to help people break through some of the mental barriers that they have. And if, the proof's in the pudding. So I'm not going to exemplify that because that's not the purpose. We need to think is not hard. Don't think pain. So I need to speak to a lot of audiences, and I'm going to start with for everybody. But we're not thinking hard. You're not thinking pain. We're thinking simple. Whenever you're trying to work on what your meals are going to be or anything like that, think simple. The easier you make this on yourself, the simpler everything is. The more things like defenses you set up around it, the more opportunities for success you're going to have. And I'm going to share with you some of these things. My challenge, again, is to speak to all different lifestyles and all different activity levels, right? So I can't talk only about only towards like the fitness gym nuts, because then everybody who sees gym and exercise as 4-letter words, well, I've lost them. So if you're one of those people, I want to start with you. If you get, if you're one of those people that say you just hear the word exercise or think gym, you cringe, you're already clamming up, your heart's already starting to go fast, like you're already going to the gym because you're like, oh no, I don't want to do that. And and if that's where you're at, you've lost before you've even started, because you've been there so many times. You've tried it from that angle so many times, and you've always lost. So you're like, well, I'm just going to grab another bag of chips and a Coke, and I'm just going to enjoy the show. I'll watch everybody else do it. If you feel that way, just cut it out of your mind. There's hope. There's definitely hope, because I felt the same way too. I was in a depressed state. I was very depressed. I had a lot of things in my mind that were troubling me, and I thought, well, if I need to reset my mind, I need to reset my body. How can I reset my body, and how can I do it if I know that I'm going to have to be highly mobile? If I know that I'm going to have to go to different countries and eat different food sources, that is completely uncommon. So that's another reason that this can work in a lot of different places. You don't have to have something that will weigh all of your food. You don't have to have a, organic gourmet chef, on payroll. You can do this simply and cheaply. And that's the other thing that I really enjoy about it, is how much money I've been able to save on food costs just from, again, improving my lifestyle and making healthier choices. So there's definitely hope, guys. Think simple. Now I'm going to speak to the collective audience. Any level of activity or starting point. So gym nuts, from anywhere from gym nuts to you're there in the gym and you think everybody in the gym's nuts, but you're there, you're doing the work, you're trying. And the first point, so point number 1 for this diet, principle 1, whiskey diet, the 80-20 rule. I know I've talked about it before. I'll share the book resources in the bio, the show notes, so that you know where I'm kind of getting this rule from. It's in a book that kind of made it kind of more specific, but it's just so this means 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, in this context at least, 80% of the time, you're following your plan. You're making the right lifestyle choices. You're making the right decisions. You're taking the right actions. But then you have 20% to create that 100%. So what do you do with the other 20%? Life's going to throw you curves. You're going to find some things that you were not expecting, and sometimes you need to eat your emotions, or you want to eat your emotions, or your body's craving something, because a lot of times, based on how the modern world is kind of developed, a response that we've conditioned ourselves to do is find comfort in food. Believe me, I love food. So, I'm not saying it has to be a sacrifice all the time. I'm not saying you have to always give up those comfort foods. I'm just saying isolate them to 20% of the time. So this gives you room to cheat, and then you also have flexibility to cheat within certain other principles within this kind of lifestyle that simplifies things for you. Makes it easier to learn, makes it easier to maintain, and consequently, you're more likely to follow it and get the results that you want. So again, if you've tried it before, if you've had coaches, if you've followed other plans and it worked and it fell off, sometimes that happens. There's no guarantees that won't happen again. But I will do my best to give you physical, practical, and mental techniques so you have the tools to get past those obstacles. So let's dive in. I'm going to walk you through an example of what it would look like for me. So, key point is you're consuming all of your calories for the entire day within a 6-hour window. Whatever 6-hour window you choose is completely up to you. Whatever works best for your lifestyle, your energy needs, your focus needs, your work, everything. So, the other part of this is it's a process. It's something that you have to be an active participant in, where it's trial and error. The first 6-hour window you choose may not be optimal for you. So, if you've got a lot of resistance, just reach out to my group, right there, the community. Questions, happy to answer them. Messages, happy to answer them, right? If you have questions, sticking points, I can offer quick tweaks if I have a little bit of information. But I also need to know that you're 80% compliant with the program to offer the tweaks. So, 6-hour window. My 6-hour window is between 2 p.m. and really 10 p.m. So I cheat a little bit. But it's something that I'm working on, is narrowing that down. And here's the thing. Once you start to get into a rhythm, it doesn't have to be as specific. That's the beauty of it. See, I promised you that you could eat what you wanted, feel great, blah, blah, blah. But you have to do this to get there. And I'll tell you why. Eventually, you can let more things slip. But you need to be very conscientious to maintain 80% compliance consistently for like at least 3 months, I would say. Everybody's different. And you're going to have some ups and downs. We'll get into those later. But, so, 6-hour window. Mine is 2 to 10. And I'm working on slimming that down because now that I'm learning more about my personal medical things that I have going on and ways to kind of improve myself, I'm going to tweak mine. So again, remember, it's an active process. But you want to keep those principles in mind and stick to the principles and adjust as needed. So, principle 1, all calories within a 6-hour window, or the majority of the calories. We're going to get into your ways to cheat, your safe ways to cheat. The other principle that you need to know is sugar, for the purposes of this lifestyle tweak, the whiskey diet, is Satan. Sugar is Satan. And I'm not trying to turn this into some good versus evil thing. So again, that's why I said don't worry too much about the actual words and any ideologies that people might, lose their mind over. Sugar is bad for you right now. And carbohydrates, if sugar is Satan, carbohydrates are sneaky sugars. Because carbohydrates, at the molecular level, once they're digested, they're going to be treated within the body like a sugar. So, what I do is, I wake up, it's important to drink water. First thing, one of the first signs of not having enough water in your system, in other words, being dehydrated, it's a fancy word for not having enough water, is dehydration. So, one of the first signs of being dehydrated is actually feeling hungry. So, another little challenge for those that maybe don't want to dive completely into this whiskey lifestyle, maybe just start with, every time you start feeling hungry, drink a glass of water, and see if that subsides, give it some time, see if that subsides the hunger, you know what I mean? And play that game a little bit, and then give in to the urge to consume food or calories. So just little things that, if you're just consistent with, can make dramatic differences in your life over time. So, wake up, make sure I get some water in me. That's going to help my brain because it's been working hard while I'm sleeping. My body's been doing things while I'm sleeping. So, give it a little bit of love. And then I have black coffee. Some people like coffee, some people don't. Tea, but you're not really going for anything with sugar in it, so don't put sugar in your coffee. Don't put cream in your coffee. And then now you're in your morning routine. Insert preferred exercise window, at least for me, somewhere in here, in this morning routine area. So right after coffee, after water, coffee, either I work out or I get my mind right, I work out. It just kind of depends on what I need to do that day. So it's also a cheating window, right? So if you're waiting until 2 and you grab some trail mix before you do your workout, you know what I mean? Let your body kind of adjust. Again, avoid those sugars. You can, if you want some alternatives, I would go for some healthy fats and meats. You can also go for avocados, olive oils. All of these things are really good. My personal favorite is just bacon and avocado, and then I'll zest the avocado with some lemon juice, and I'll add some salt to it. And I've got a protein, I've got a fat, and I've got just this avocado, which is so healthy in everything that it can do. So it's literally one of my favorite foods. And then whenever you're looking at olive oils, there's a great book. I believe that the one that I got this little bit out of was Grain Brain. I'll have to double check, but we'll put it in the notes. Again, Grain Brain. And it talks about olive oils and like how you can tell the better olive oils for having those properties. And they're very earthy. And so I found some cold pressed olive oils recently, and that's what I've been using. And me, I'll even gargle it, drink it, just do different things like that, let it set at the back of my throat. Because now is where I want to just make another quick shift, like framework shift, because we want this to be fun, right? We don't want this to be boring or like painful. Again, we're getting all those words out of our head. So whenever you start hearing those again, whenever you start saying those again, you got to replace them with something better. You got to replace them with something not painful. Make it fun, right? So here we are. We're going to have fun. So think of sugar or carbohydrates as sandpaper. Whenever you eat that, just think about once it goes into your bloodstream, that instead of it, if it's too much of it, which there is in the modern diet, then it's going to act like sandpaper on the inside of your blood vessels, your arteries, your veins, all of this subway system within your body that brings good nutrition and oxygen to the cells so that they can do everything they need to do. And it also transports all the waste out. So if you want to think of the body as like a city and each cell is a house, you have a delivery service that brings you everything that you need, but you also need to send the trash out as well. Otherwise, you're going to collect too much junk. And that's just from energy loads. Like every time you flex your muscles, you have to get waste products out. We could go on and on. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. That's whenever we get into one of those isolated lessons or episodes where I go specifically to say that topic. So if carbohydrates and sugars are sandpaper, and it stands to reason if we've been overloading our system with sugar and creating some long-term chronic problems, almost as if there were some medical experience done at a psychiatric institute that were not published for 15 years to hide the negative consequences of a very popular low cholesterol diet that has been touted by physicians for decades. Why did they not publish those results for 15 years? Great question. I don't have that answer, but I would say there might have been some ego involved. I don't know. Never met the guy. Already don't like him. Don't like the cut of his jib. You know what I'm saying? I don't think I really need a reason for somebody who would do something like that. We'll post some more stuff for that in the show notes too, so you can see for yourself. Or you can read Genius Foods. They talk about it in there. All right. So those were my favorites. Other things you can do. Vegetables. You're going to want to try to avoid potatoes right now, but Brussels sprouts, spinach, kale, broccoli, cauliflower, carrots, all these things are great. They even have these like little mashed up avocado things already that you can just spoon out and go. But again, these should be limited. You don't want to just overload yourself on vegetables because again, you're trying to only consume the majority of your calories within that 6-hour window. So if you can't make it that long, grab yourself a handful of a healthy snack, a healthy alternative. And again, get rid of all the bad temptations as possible and don't buy them whenever you go next. I like to have something there just so I know it's there in case of emergency, like a fire extinguisher, break glass in case of emergency. I'll have some of those things on hand. That way I don't have some anxieties and some other things about lack or want. See what I'm saying? I know it's there, but I'm disciplining myself to not reach for it immediately every time. Okay, so now let's talk about some other really awesome things that happened for me whenever I started doing this. I've had a complicated relationship with food. Because of my lifestyle, my work, I've always been very mobile. I have had to go a lot of different places, maybe not always be able to cook my meals, a lot of different things, right? And cooking for one, shopping for one, all of that stuff is always pretty complicated. So if you're in a traditional mindset where you believe that you're supposed to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then you have all of the prep, cleaning, etc. of all of these things, it can become very overwhelming for anyone, really, and especially if you're like just by yourself doing literally everything, head of house, everything, right? So here we go. I'm just going to call it that I had food anxiety to make it simple. So over time, whenever I would get stressed or other things were going on in my life, food always took the last priority. So then I find myself not giving my body the nutrients that it needs to perform optimally because my operating system was all wrong. My relationship with food was broken and distorted. So now I've started to help restore that relationship. And over time, but what I want to say is all day while I was working or whatever it was that I'm doing throughout the day is I got to think about what I wanted to eat that night. What was my dinner going to be? And I could eat as much as I want. I could eat anything I wanted. As many calories. Of course, the goal was to be healthy. To make smart choices. But I know that that's my window that I can eat whatever I want. Again, don't gorge yourself. But here's some things that are going to happen. You're going to shrink your stomach. Because a lot of times our feeling full is, there's two drives that are going to signal to your brain that I want to talk about. There's probably others, but these are the two that I want you to be aware of. That signal to your brain that you've consumed enough calories. Okay? One of those things is like baro. I've talked about baroreceptors. So that is for pressure. So if your stomach starts filling up and getting larger, then you're going to push yourself up against one of those baroreceptors, pressure receptors. It's going to start feeling that change in pressure, and it's going to say, oh, my stomach is full. Now, there's a delay in that because that's a hormonal response, I believe. By the time that gets to the brain, you've probably ate for another 10 to 15 minutes, maybe. I don't know the exact timeline for each person, but you get the idea. So, now you're consuming even more calories. Now, what if you get in the habit of continuing past the point of feeling full because you really like that feeling? I do too. Thanksgiving is dangerous. But every day, Thanksgiving, you know where that's going to lead. So, recognize those signals. And again, drinking a full glass of water before you even start eating is going to, one, be another technique you can implement to help you reduce the calories, to help shrink that stomach. Now, another warning. You're most likely going to get some pretty weird poops, so be ready for that. But if you think about it, a lot of the topics of life kind of revolve around poop, so you might as well get used to it. And a lot of the topics that we're probably going to talk about here. So, let's keep going. Big Patrick also told me that whenever he started doing this diet, moving away from the poops, that he's just told me how amazing every single meal was and how it was just so mouth-watering and delicious and melt in your mouth and ooey gooey love. And he was just over the moon just thanking me because that was just another thing that he found, in addition to his energy feeling better and things like that, that he just really, really appreciated. Another little warning. This is not going to be without discomfort, without pain, without sacrifice. You know, you're going to have to give up a little bit to get a little. So, again, I'm trying to help you make this as easy of a transition as possible. And if you have a bad day, you have an unplanned cheat day, that's okay. But you got to get back on track. Another personal lesson that I kind of really learned. Okay, I'm going to go into two real quick. Two personal lessons that I learned going through this process was, it was also an exercise to give myself more grace, to learn when to give myself a break whenever I was beating myself up too much or being too hard on myself or something like that. This was a practical exercise to help get rid of some of my negative self-talk that surrounded things where I would get into a negative spiral loop, if that makes sense. So it helped me break some of those cycles, and it also really brought to life, like, thanking, being grateful for the food that you have. So giving thanks. That made Thanksgiving very real, very genuine. Because whenever you've put yourself into a physiological state of not having the same energy source that you're used to, whenever you finally get to give your body that good food and that good love, it just feels amazing. You really respect your meal, whether it came from the ground, whether it came from an animal or something like that. Just try it. You'll get what I'm saying. And then all the flavors pop in ways that it's just mind-blowing. So those were two big things, helping me defeat my self-talk, some of those negative self-talks, because it was a drill. I could keep practicing. Every day was a new attempt. Every day was a new trial, right? So now, with one shift, just deciding to consume the majority of my calories in 1 6-hour window, I've saved myself time, I've saved myself money, I've saved myself mental energy, I've avoided an anxiety trigger for myself, and I've invested in my future energy, all with one very quick, very simple change. And it's flexible. It can work in a lot of different areas, in a lot of different careers, whether you're a business person, whether you're in finance, whether you're in bank, whether you have a very active job, whether you're an athlete. All of these things can just be force multipliers, because like I said, now we're going to shift focuses now. Now we're shifting into a little bit of why it works and the body's metabolism. So we've gone over 30 minutes now, so it looks like you're getting a bonus episode. So let's shift into, actually this is probably going to be a 2-part episode. So we're going to shift into metabolism. So stay tuned for why this is going to function physiologically within your body. So you have the tools. Think about it. Maybe look at some of the resources in the notes. Drop some questions. Drop some comments. Anything that doesn't make sense, I'd love to clear up. And in the next episode, we're going to go into metabolism. Now I'm going to give you a little teaser. The reason you're doing all of this is to change the body's preferred source of fuel or energy. Right now, the modern diet has created a dependency on these sugars. So our bodies are addicted to them like one could be to, say, cocaine or alcohol. And the other beautiful part about, this being flexible is there's calories in liquor, which is why I call it the whiskey diet. And beers have tons of carbohydrates, which are Satan. So I love myself a good beer. That's why I have my 20% flexibility. There's also calories in there that I can burn as fuel. So now once my body has shifted into using a different energy source, now sugars are not as toxic or as abrasive to my body. So again, I don't think I got all the way through the fun part was if sugars are sandpaper, we need to find lubricants now. What are things that can give us lubricants to make this whole process less painful? Because your body is going to be going through a change, a transition, everything. So for me, the things that I like to lubricate myself with are alcohol, healthy fats, avocados, those olive oils. So all of these things can kind of coat your vasculature and like all the things that are going through your cells, and it gives them a protective coating so you're not putting hard surfaces up against other hard surfaces. So there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, how you can go back to consuming some sugars, but you're also going to stop enjoying them quite as much. But then once you actually do them, you're going to appreciate them for the beauty that they have. And again, principles, 80-20 rule, and exercising grace, and then also, giving grace to myself, and then that also helped me think and give grace to others, right? So overall, super excited. I hope you enjoy it. And the first step is making a commitment. And outside of that, the more people you tell that you're committed to doing it, that's more motivation that you're putting. Those are like stacks of firewood next to a bonfire when you're about to have a big party with all your friends. You want to have all kinds of those friends sitting there ready to have a great big bonfire and throwing more and more wood on. So create yourself a network, create yourself some of those positive feedback loops like we talked about on our previous episode with Mr. Say, and use the group, use the Two Promises community, And we'll start creating some positive feedback loops for ourselves and everyone. And super excited for you tuning in. Thank you very much. Drop a like, drop a comment. Of course, subscriptions, all of those things, and 5-star reviews help us immensely. So let's do it. And I'm super excited for next episode. Enjoy.
Thank you for joining us today on this curious roller coaster of life. If this is your stop, please exit peacefully and enjoy the rest of your day. If you're ready for another one, just push play. A final note before you go: thank you. And thank you for feeling. The distillation and aging process is different for everyone. I'm not quite sure what you're ready for, so please sip slowly and enjoy responsibly.
Baby says she's leaving if I don't stop drinking wine. So I switched to whiskey, now I'm feeling fine. Drinking that smooth whiskey. No more